Okay, next question is from Geertude. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Geertude asks, what do you think about open relationships? I think this is a very complicated topic, and it's going to be difficult for me to answer this as thoroughly as I possibly could in this episode because I have a list of questions to go over. So I'm going to make it more of a brief answer so you can get a general idea of where I'm coming from. But keep in mind that I believe this is a very complex issue. So I don't think you could do a whole podcast episode on this topic alone is what I'm trying to say. First, before I give my answer, I want to preface this by saying I think relationships and monogamy and lust and all that is really messy and really complicated. So what I see monogamy and polyamory are as two attempts to solve two possible solutions to deal with the mess of love and the mess of romance and the mess of human instincts and lust and relationships and whatnot. I don't believe that there is a utopian solution. I don't think either solution is perfect. I think there's ups and downs. There's pros and cons to either solution. Personally, I would have to vouch for monogamy as a solution that works for me. Again, this could be a whole episode in itself. So I'm going to just stick to some basic points of why it's a preference for me. One of the talking points or the selling points of polyamory is that, and it's actually, it's valid and it makes sense, is that in relationships, romantic relationships that are monogamous, we tend to expect to get all of our needs met from this one person. You know, we expect them to be a good friend. We expect them to be emotionally available to us at all times. We expect them to be sexually available to us, or else we feel lonely or rejected. So the theory is that it's not possible to expect all of this to be met from one person. It's not fair. It's not possible. And, even in a monogamous relationship, you can outsource these needs from friends, from family. But even specifically in polyamorous relationships, they even narrow that down to sexual and romantic and emotional support. Even if we take the topic of sexual alone, let's say one partner has a very high sex drive and one doesn't, or for whatever reason, that other partner is not in the mood to open up intimately in some kind of way. So I guess a polyamorous solution would be, the reason why relationships fail is because this is an impossible situation. You cannot expect this one human being to meet all your needs and to meet all your needs for the rest of your life. Because you might meet somebody who maybe in one phase of their life, like when you first meet them, they're very energetic and they're able to be there for you sexually, romantically, emotionally. But things happen in life. So no wonder there's so many divorces. So the argument makes sense. Like, I understand where polyamory, people who practice polyamory are coming from outsource it to different people. You don't need to have one romantic partner to fill that gap. But to me, where I find this line of thinking to not be better for me, to not be a better solution for me, the way I see it is that I don't think the solution is outsource my needs to other people. I think the solution is learn how to be alone because I think you're just creating, especially for me, who I tend to be a little more anxiously attached. So for me to feel like insecure or abandoned by my partner who's not meeting my needs, if I divide that attention up into multiple people and expect other people to meet those needs, to me that's like, well, I'm not really learning how to solve that problem of being anxious, being anxiously attached. So I think the real solution for me would be to, rather than saying, well, he can't meet my needs, then he will learn how to meet my own needs. Like, I think to me that would be a more sensible and healthy solution. Otherwise, if I were just to continue to outsource those needs with other people, I think for me, I would just never learn how to be alone. Like, I would just sort of always expect somebody to meet my needs. So I do find a flaw in the theory of polyamory in that sense. And there's a lot of talking points I could bring up. So I'll just bring up one more because I want to move on to the next question. But another thing is, I feel like these days our attention is so divided into multiple different sources. That's kind of like a natural progression due to technology. Like I was reading something the other day that said a lot of young people, they can't focus on one thing. It's just not the way our brains are wired anymore. They need to be able to focus on multiple different things and to multitask. So for example, one student might need to be listening to music while doing their homework, while checking their phone, while having something on in the TV on in the background, and they kind of need to like shift their focus into multiple things. I feel like the progression of the times, usually you can see this. Where I got this from was actually from music school. I remember in music school, I had a music professor tell me that music and art in that time period always reflect each other. So for example, if I think back to I think I talked about this on a history podcast, but if I think back to the Bach era, the Baroque era, the music that Sebastian Bach made was very ornamented and quick and like frilly. And then you can also see that being represented in the architecture of the time. Like everything was very golden and ornamented and very heavily designed. So I feel like in a way, it's not just music. That doesn't just reflect music and art. I think that reflects many different things in the culture. So I think how we can see this being manifested in our current culture is that while our attention is being divided and we need to split these things up into all these different things, it would only make sense that that would naturally progress into relationships as well. So I can't just do this. I need to have multiple different partners. Makes sense. It seems like just a natural progression of the way things are going. But again, going back, for me personally, I would still pose the argument that I think monogamy is better. For me, no judgment, but and the reason I say this is because I don't know if we're happy with our attention divided like that. There's so many ways this could go, so I'm trying to give a parallel example. Okay, for example, even within the media I consume, I find it really difficult to sit down and like watch something now. So sometimes I'll just like, people will scroll through like 60-second reels and TikToks and whatnot. And even within that, they don't even like watch the whole thing. Like sometimes they don't even watch the full 60-second like reel, Instagram reel or TikTok. They'll just scroll to the next one, etc. But I'm not sure if people are happy doing that, because I find there to be something incredibly rewarding about sitting down and watching a full length film and like really sitting with it and getting to absorb the music and the whole production and the story and the storyline and the excitement. So where I'm going with this is, while I think we are naturally inclined to move quickly, I do think that anytime I hear about anybody in our culture who does take a step back and take things slowly over a longer progression, like a film, for example, versus a TikTok reel, I usually find that those people report like how satisfied and content that they felt afterwards. So the reason I'm bringing this up as a parallel is because I think most human endeavors are probably the same. It's probably much more rewarding and satisfying for a human being to see out the long term of something. And I just feel like if you're dividing your romantic attention amongst multiple people, you're not really seeing out and working through the struggles that do exist within a monogamous relationship. And again, going back to what I said earlier, it's not that monogamy is easy. It's not that monogamy is utopian. Absolutely not. But I just think if it's with the right person, like, I'm not condoning to stay and work through struggles with somebody that you're not happy with. I don't believe that. But I believe if you have two willing candidates that are sexually attracted to each other and that have aligned beliefs and who both have a vision of a future that they want together, and those visions are more or less aligned, and both parties are willing to work hard, I just think that the outcome of that is so beautiful and difficult, but so beautiful. And I just don't think if you're dividing your romantic attention amongst multiple people, I don't really think you're ever going to see out that, like, again, to that parallel, you're not going to see out the full film. You're just TikTok reeling relationships, you know? That's my opinion. I'm sure there's counter arguments to that. I'm sure some people might argue that, well, you are seeing out these relationships. You're just seeing them with multiple people and not just one of them. I imagine that's probably a possibility, but I would also imagine that that wouldn't be possible. Like, at a certain point, there would only be so much energy that one human being would have to give. And by dividing that energy up amongst multiple people, I would imagine that you wouldn't be allowing one thing to completely flourish. I mean, I've had issues with that in my own creative life, for example. Like, this year I had decided to take a step back from stand-up. Like, a lot of people are like, why haven't you been doing stand-up anymore? It's not that I don't love stand-up. I love stand-up. It's just that as a one human being, I can't possibly give all my love and devotion. Let me rephrase that. I can't possibly split my love and devotion and expect one to completely flourish. I would have to pull back some energy from somewhere in order for one to be completely seen out and flourishing in the most maximum capacity of possibilities. And I believe relationships to be no different. I think it sounds incredibly exhausting to me to have to divide that dedication and work up to multiple people. So yeah, that's where I would have to stand with that. But again, that could be something that we could talk a lot more about that. So I'm going to stop there and move on to the next question. Okay, the next question is from Ryan Brennan Guitar. Ryan Brennan wants me to talk about navigating relocation.